Coming up next on the Holistic Wealth Podcast.
Empathy-driven culture. And I think that is at the core of a holistically wealthy workplace. It's empathy-driven, so employees feel valued and understood, and they have the support of leaders who empathize with their experiences and their challenges. When we talk about lived experience, that's critical, because sometimes my lived experience isn't yours. But if you're telling me this is my lived experience, then I need you to believe me.
You're listening to the Holistic Wealth Podcast with host Keisha Blair, author of Holistic Wealth and founder of the Institute on Holistic Wealth. And now, here's your host, Keisha Blair.
Welcome to the Holistic Wealth Podcast, and I'm your host, Keisha Blair. And today we have another special solo episode. And the Holistic Wealth Podcast is sponsored by the Institute on Holistic Wealth. So you can check out the website for a range of courses and resources. Of course, the Institute on Holistic Wealth is the global leader in holistic wealth coaching. It is the first of its kind in the world in terms of holistic wealth certification programs, holistic wealth coaching programs. The Institute on Holistic Wealth was a global leader in setting up this type of format to get holistic wealth coaching programs instituted around the world. And so it is a pioneer institution in holistic wealth coaching. Now, I'm welcoming back everyone listening in, or regular listeners. If you're a first time listener to the podcast, welcome. Last week, we spoke about holistic wealth at work, and this is a follow-up. This is part 2 to that episode. So if you didn't get to check out that episode, please do. You can do so even after you listen to this episode. That's completely fine. And this is so critical, the work that we've been embarking on. This is life-saving work. This journey that we've been on with the global holistic wealth movement is life-saving for so many people. And during this episode, we're going to unpack that, and I'm going to share why it's so critical and why it's so life-saving. So over 400 million people make life and death decisions each and every day at work. And this is why the Holistic Wealth Pledge is critical. Now, last week we spoke about holistic wealth at work. We had a definition of what holistic wealth at work means. So you can check out that episode again. So this is a part 2. And we're going to get into this nitty-gritty of this whole issue of people making life and death decisions at work. And we're going to unpack that a bit more because it's so important. And as I said, this is high stakes especially for those who work in professions that are basically, and you can imagine, and we're going to get into it, but there are professions out there, doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, construction workers, people in the mining industry. There are a lot of workers out there who make life and death decisions every single day. And even if you're not an essential worker or a worker whose life is on the line, like you're not a policeman, you still make life and death decisions every day. Like just sitting down at your desk all day for 8 hours, not taking breaks. That's a life and death decision. So let's face it. Even this 400 million figure, and we're going to unpack that right now, is basically an underestimate, right? So we know it's larger, but these are workers who are making life and death decisions, and you're going to see why it's so critical that we discuss this. So let's talk about this staggering figure, this 400 million people worldwide who face these decisions every day at work. You might be wondering, where does this number come from? And which industries and sectors does it account for? So we're going to break that down. And before I get into that breakdown, I just want to get into why personally I've embraced this as my mission. Now, I did do a lot of research to come up with this 400 million figure because, as I stated in my book, Holistic Wealth Expanded and Updated, my husband made a life and death decision at work and it cost him his life. He decided to stay at work even though he felt ill. He didn't know at the time that he was deathly ill. He didn't know that a tumor had erupted and started bleeding inside of him. And he made the decision to stay because he had a lineup of colleagues waiting outside to check their work. He was also a manager, so he felt obligated to do this. Some of them weren't his direct reports. Some of them were just colleagues at the same level. Some of them were higher paying professionals than he was, but he was always regarded as a whiz, as a CPA, as an accountant. So people relied on him. But what I want to really emphasize to you is he wasn't in an essential role. He was in a position where he, was in one of those industries that we think about when we think about making life and death decisions, right? He was a CPA. He was an accountant. But that's what I'm saying. This is critical for all of us, regardless of our industry, regardless of our sector. And I'm passionate about this because of my experience. And I basically did some thinking to put a framework around this so all of us can realize in terms of our lives and in terms of the sustainability of how we live, why this is important. And so I dug deep, after the last episode, and I said, I wonder how many people globally are making life and death decisions. What does that look like for each one of us in our different fields, in our different industries, in our different professions? Whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, it still does not matter. It's the same thing. So let's break down this 400 million figure. So let's start with healthcare, one of the very obvious ones. It's one of the largest sectors worldwide, from doctors, nurses, emergency responders. Healthcare professionals are making critical choices every day. That's not only affecting their lives, but affecting the lives of millions of people. And globally, the healthcare sector has around 136 million workers. Now, God bless each and every one of them that's in the healthcare profession. I have so many people represented in my own family who are doctors, nurses, healthcare responders, EMS workers. And I'm thinking of each and every one. And I remember during COVID-19, how stressful and how the decisions that they were making was affecting their families in terms of every single decision that they made in terms of their gear, giving care to others. So you can imagine when we talk about life and death decisions at work, this is trauma. This is people making decisions not only impacting their lives, but the lives of others every single minute of the day under seriously stressful and exhausting circumstances where they're called upon to even go when they feel like they can't go anymore. And I want to emphasize that. So that's healthcare. Then we move on to public safety and emergency services, right? So we're talking about firefighters, police officers, other emergency service professionals, and they're making split-second decisions that impact lives. Just as, in the healthcare sector, they're making split-second decisions. In the public safety and emergency services, they're also making split-second decisions that impact not only their lives. You can imagine, going out as a fireman, getting a call, right, to respond to a fire. Same thing. It's unbelievable. And again, so this sector combined comprises over 70 million individuals worldwide. Now let's move on to transport and logistics, another big sector. And when you think about truck drivers, air traffic controllers, pilots globally, we're talking about even airport workers, security workers, workers who are screening officers at airports, a hugely critical role. They're detecting bombs at airports. They're checking luggage that might have explosive weapons. This sector comprises 27 million people globally. And honestly, when you think about these workers and we think about them in a totality, honestly, we need to keep these workers in our thoughts and our prayers every single day. And they are all making split level decisions minutely. Okay. Energy and utilities, roughly 30 million people work in the energy sector, from oil and gas to nuclear. Decisions here also have a massive impact on public safety and environmental health. Then we go to education and social work. So in teaching and social work, there are around 120 million individuals who make choices affecting the mental and emotional well-being of our children and families. And they also make life and death decisions every single day at work. And listen, my mom is a teacher, so I know firsthand, you might not think of teaching as one of those where they're, making life, but they are absolutely doing that, especially those teachers who work with very young children who can't take care of themselves. but they are taking care of young babies, young children in elementary school. They're giving first aid. They're dressing cuts and bruises. They're dispensing medication sometimes. And yes, that comprises 120 million individuals and teachers. We thank God for you each and every single day for watching over our kids, for going above and beyond the call of duty. I remember when my daughter broke her collarbone earlier this year, it was a teacher who had to tear a piece of cloth, make a makeshift sling for her hand in the collarbone, dispense medication, get ice packs. I mean, she went into emergency mode. She went into full healthcare mode. So sometimes our teachers are going into full emergency responder mode. So I want to honestly, this is why I want to break this down. And this, as you can imagine, we're all doing it. We're all making life and death decisions every single day. We travel for work internationally. Sometimes we're in the airports. We're traveling by car. We're making life and death decisions at our desks with what we eat, how long we sit, how long our eyes are on the screen, who we're meeting with at work, different clients, where we go to the train station, which car route we take. And so this 400 million is a conservative figure, right? It's relatively conservative, but it's safe and a figure that we can all use when we talk about making life and death decisions. So I just wanted to unpack that for you because it's a global reality. And these decisions have profound consequences impacting the lives of these workers as well as the well-being of others. And this is why holistic wealth matters for these individuals and for our workplaces. So when we talk about holistic wealth at work, what do we mean? We're talking about, that traditional notion of the triple bottom line back in the day that became very popular. We talk about sustainability. We talk about well-being. So we're not just pushing the bottom line in terms of profit and putting that over employee well-being, but holistic wealth comprises our mental health, our emotional health, our physical wealth, our spiritual well-being, life purpose and meaning. It also has balance and sustainability in there. And if you read the book, and I'm hoping every single person that's listening in today will get their copy of the book today as you're listening in, just go online and order it right now. Because as you read the book, it's going to become very, very clear to you why this is absolutely critical, that we all get involved, that we all get more intentional about our decisions, that we all advocate for holistically wealthy workplaces. So let's talk about the importance of the Holistic Wealth Pledge. Why is the Holistic Wealth Pledge so important for everyone? So let's break it down. The Holistic Wealth Pledge is a commitment to a workplace culture that prioritizes resilience, emotional well-being, and ethical decision-making. So when employees, especially in those high-stakes roles, know their organization supports them holistically, they're empowered to make decisions with clarity and compassion. So this pledge also means that companies commit to valuing well-being over just pure profit and the bottom line. So a critical aspect of this pledge is a shared commitment to ethical practices and well-being. Imagine if every healthcare provider, emergency responder, screening officer, transport worker, teacher, doctor, nurse, engineers out there, construction workers, had a work culture supporting them holistically. They'd likely experience reduced burnout, better focus, better productivity, and more ethical decision-making capacity. And when we talk about this, we also have to include the concept of psychological safety. And that whole concept means that psychologically, I feel okay and I feel empowered to speak up when I need to. Because one day I might feel so ill and I want to get up and run to save my life. But because I'm in a workplace where psychological safety isn't a priority, or where the well-being of employees isn't a priority, I feel like there's going to be some backlash if I speak up to say, you know what, I'm not feeling well. I have to run. I need to go to the hospital. I need to go to the emergency room. I need to go home. I need to get this done. I need to prioritize this right now. And sometimes that is also a split second decision. Sometimes you don't have hours to ruminate and to think, well, should I not? Should I go? Maybe I'll just wait to see if I feel a bit better. Maybe I'll just go drink some tea. Maybe I'll just take an aspirin. Maybe I'll just take an Advil. Sometimes none of that will work. Sometimes it's serious medical intervention to save lives that is needed. In the case of my husband, none of that would have worked. The tumor had already started bleeding in him at work. The only thing that could have saved him was a split-second decision to get up and literally run to the emergency room. And this is why I'm taking the time in part 2 of this podcast series to really hammer home why this is so important. So when we talk about holistic wealth at work and holistically wealthy workplaces, in part 1, we gave the definition and overview, but we didn't get to talk about the characteristics of holistically wealthy workplaces. And when we talk about holistic wealth at work, how do we identify these workplaces that are holistically wealthy? Well, number 1, and this isn't an exhaustive list. This is me just jotting down, right? So feel free to also email me, right, at info@KeishaBlair.com and say, hey, Keisha, I think you left this off. I really think this should be added to the characteristics of holistically wealthy workplaces. But number 1, an empathy-driven culture. Empathy-driven culture. And I think that is at the core of a holistically wealthy workplace. It's empathy-driven. So employees feel valued and understood. And they have the support of leaders who empathize with their experiences and their challenges. And when we talk about lived experience, that's critical, because sometimes my lived experience isn't yours. But if you're telling me this is my lived experience, then I need you to believe me. And I need you to say to me, well, yes, I absolutely believe you and I support you 100%. Even if it isn't my lived experience. And when we talk about racism in the workplace, we talk about diversity, employment equity. This is also a part of that. So an empathy-driven culture. So we need empathy-driven leaders. Number 2, open communication. In these workplaces, teams and leaders communicate openly and encourage discussions around mental health, emotional well-being, and other ethical challenges. Now, I know in some workplaces, even topics like grief, losing a loved one, losing a spouse, losing, a child, divorce, sometimes it seems so taboo. And for what reason? This is life, right? So open communication is not just talking when you have a staff meeting in a boardroom around things that impact teams. It's also giving a shared space to those people who are dealing with these setbacks and challenges. And it might not be in a regular boardroom meeting, but shared spaces otherwise within the workplace for those people to be able to openly engage around their mental health and emotional well-being. Number 3, professional growth and purpose, life purpose. Now, purpose and growth, professional and personal growth, huge parts of holistic wealth. If you read the book, it's actually one of the core principles of holistic wealth. Employees should be encouraged to pursue purposeful work that aligns with their core values. And I'll tell you why this is important, especially in the context of making life and death decisions. Sometimes when inertia sets in, sometimes when too much stress and burnout sets in, the risks of taking life and death or making life and death decisions increase. It increases. But if employees can find meaning and purpose at work that aligns with their core values, and it's done in a way that aligns with their core values too, right? So it's not just the work, it's how we do the work. It's how we deliver the work. And it has to be in a sustainable, balanced fashion where employees are also empowered to speak up about how that work is delivered, when it's delivered, what timelines. It can't just be a top-down driven process, where you feel like you're in a sweatshop and you don't have any power, where you feel powerless. So that's also very critical. Number 4, mental health resources. Access to mental health resources is a priority in holistically wealthy workplaces. So employees have tools for managing stress, avoiding burnout, and maintaining their resilience. So I always say, and I said this in the last podcast episode, what's the purpose of driving employees to death, working employees to death? And tomorrow you face a reduced or a non-existent workforce. What's the point of that? That's not sustainable, and it benefits no one in the short to medium term. When we empower employees to make decisions and to have access to resources to strengthen themselves, to rebuild and to continue building their resilience muscles, then we build more resilient workplaces and we have more resilient workforces and therefore more resilient communities. So access to mental health resources is critical. Flexible working conditions, and I cannot emphasize this enough. With all the return to work mandates that we see in the news, we have to be mindful and very intentional about safeguarding remote work options. And I just outlined why it's so critical at the beginning of the show. When we talk about 400 million employees globally, having flexibility in your work schedule, adaptable policies actually empowers employees to make better life and death decisions, to actually equip themselves to be in a position to make a good, solid decision in a split second. We need to safeguard that. We need to safeguard and protect our human resources. And so having flexible working conditions also provides for this. It really does. When we only value someone sitting in a chair from 9 to 5, not moving, only for a lunch break, only for a bathroom break, and if they feel like they need to have a different environment to continue to work. Now, I understand with essential workers where you have to be stationed somewhere in a specified time, but where appropriate, I think it's important to safeguard those flexible working conditions. Ethical frameworks is our last one that we're going to discuss, is our last characteristic of holistically wealthy workplaces. Ethical frameworks, we need to have these in place. There's a clear understanding of ethics and values. Both leaders and employees know that these ethical frameworks are in place. They empower employees to make decisions rooted in integrity. And that's so important, that the way of integrity is empowered in our organizations, in our workplaces, in our businesses. Safeguarding integrity is aligned with Holistic Wealth. And if you have a copy of Holistic Wealth Expanded and Updated, there's a chapter that outlines the Holistic Wealth Index. And the Holistic Wealth Index is also a part of the characteristics of holistically wealthy workplaces. Now, I'm just flipping through one of the books, and when we talk about applying holistic wealth, we talk about the holistic wealth portfolio, which every organization should have. Every single organization, company, business needs to have a holistic wealth portfolio, and the Institute on Holistic Wealth can help design one for you. And then we talk about the Holistic Wealth Development Index, and that's in chapter 36. It's the last chapter of the book. And that also outlines a set of characteristics, and holistically wealthy workplaces are also grounded in that. So if you're listening in, this is why you need to get a copy of the book. Now, in the last episode, I also spoke about the Certified Holistic Wealth Consultant Program. That's the flagship program of the Institute on Holistic Wealth. And so for companies and individuals, you don't have to be a company, you could be just an individual listening in, but you're looking to embody these principles and you're looking to integrate holistic wealth into your life, into your business, and maybe you want to start your own holistic wealth coaching. Well, the Certified Holistic Wealth Consultant Program is key to this goal, because having certified holistic wealth consultants within your organization, in your business, for you yourself, it is critical in terms of how we move this forward. So the program empowers consultants to guide also workplaces in creating healthier, more resilient environments. They're trained to bring a balance of mental, emotional, and financial resilience into the workplace. Certified consultants serve as champions of holistic wealth within their organizations, offering strategies for resilience, leadership, and well-being. These consultants can facilitate workshops on everything from financial empowerment to stress management and lead discussions on ethical decision-making. Now, the Institute on Holistic Wealth is the pioneer in this field, started the field of holistic wealth coaching, and offers the Certified Holistic Wealth Consultant Program. It's a coaching program that is designed to really empower people to do all of this and more. If you're listening in, you can register for the program online by yourself. You don't need to be part of an organization. You can register for the program by yourself. If you're a leader, it can be part of your leadership training. If you're an executive, a part of your executive training. And you can also do the program on your own. You don't need anybody to approve it. You can also do the program on your own. And it's critical that we start thinking about not only our lives in workplaces as executives, as leaders, but for our own families and for our own lives. I mean, when you think about holistic wealth from cradle to grave, you know, it's so critical in everything we do. So just before I end, I just want to say a quick word about Global Holistic Wealth Day, because it's coming up on April 9th next year, and we're gearing up for that. And all of this is gearing up towards making practical changes, not only holistic wealth at home, but holistic wealth at work. And you can check out the episode where I spoke about holistic wealth at home. But Global Holistic Wealth Day is another initiative that highlights the importance of holistic wealth principles worldwide. Celebrated annually, and it encourages everyone, individuals and organizations, to reflect on holistic wealth in their lives and their workplaces. This day is full of workshops, community activities, and events promoting balance and well-being across every walk of life. Now, it's celebrated on April 9th, and during the week of April 9th, it's also known as Global Holistic Wealth Week. So it's an invitation for everyone to pause and reflect and engage in self-care, resilience building activities. It's also an opportunity for companies to publicly commit to holistic wealth. Now, if you're listening in, just go on and sign the pledge on the Global Holistic Wealth Day website. We're looking to have at least 200 signatures by April 9th next year. So by April 9th next year, we want to have 200 signatures, you know, when we hit Global Holistic Wealth Day 2025. And it's important because it's one of the tangible outcomes. It's one of the tangible things that we all can do to be intentional about holistic wealth in our lives. So just to wrap up, holistic wealth in the workplace isn't just a luxury, it's essential. Over 400 million people worldwide are making life and death decisions daily. And a culture rooted in holistic wealth is critical to their well-being, decision-making, and resilience. I encourage every single one of you listening in to learn more about the Holistic Wealth Pledge, to sign it, and consider how you can advocate for this in your own workplace. And if you're interested in making an even bigger impact, explore the Certified Holistic Wealth Consultant Program on the Institute on Holistic Wealth website. Mark your calendars for April 9th next year, of course. And please send this episode, share this episode with at least 3 other individuals. Let's keep this in the back of our minds going into 2025 for how we can make sustainable, tangible changes in the world. Let's also think about those workers globally who are making life and death decisions each and every day. Let's hold them in our hearts. And honestly, let's commit to really living lives and to really spreading the word about this to help protect them, to help to protect their families, their children, future generations coming up, so that we can improve on those mental health statistics. and so we can make the world a better place. Please, if you're listening in, please share a review of this podcast episode on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, even on YouTube. If you can't even log into any of those, it's fine. Find the episode on YouTube, subscribe, leave us a quick note. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. Have a great week ahead. Love you all. Bye.
The Holistic Wealth Podcast with Keisha Blair is brought to you by. Have you joined the Institute on Holistic Wealth? If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Choose your membership plan at the Institute on Holistic Wealth/memberships to join. As a member, you'll get access to free worksheets, advice, coaching, and an intentional design workshop. As you start to live a more holistically wealthy lifestyle, you'll want to stay for a very long time. So go to Institute on Holistic Wealth/memberships to join. If you haven't read the book yet, pick up a copy of the award-winning best-selling Holistic Wealth 36 Life Lessons to help you recover from disruption, find your life purpose, and achieve financial freedom.